For example, 19% of our seniors, this is across the county, reported needing help for things like grocery shopping.
Yes.
Now, people think, well, what does that mean? Well, what it means is there's no one there to help.
Yes.
They're having difficulty, which means transportation issues. Did anything in the report strike you as amazing that I can't believe we didn't know about this?
Well, you know, one of the things, the most significant finding is the inadequate dental insurance. When we started the process, we thought we'd find looking for health care and maybe transportation as the most significant finding. But when dental came to the forefront, we said, we really didn't know this, and we were so pleased that we were able to get that information to start looking for resources to assist the seniors in finding the help that they so badly need.
Well, I found another one was that 25% reported difficulties and they needed help for home repairs.
Correct.
And I'm thinking, you know, if you were smart enough and you put the grab bar, say, next to the bathtub, but it broke, you better have somebody to help you fix it.
And there's also, I think, in our community, difficulty for older adults in trusting repair persons that are going to do the job correctly, that is not going to be a scam. I know that on an ongoing basis we have challenges in trying to help connect seniors. Both the city and county have handy worker type programs that assist low-income seniors with small repairs in the home. But again, when you look at the population size of Los Angeles City and Los Angeles County, it is quite daunting for any program to meet the ongoing needs of the entire population.
Well, and we should talk about those needs. Let's see, we have 1.3 million seniors now, at least that's what the report said. But it's going to be 3 million in 20-some-odd years.
Yes.
Now, you're going to double the needs, which means all of us better get engaged on this subject as quickly as possible.
And that's really one of the main reasons why we wanted to do this project at this time, because we need to step up the planning for our seniors.
Yes.
We need to make sure that both the county and the city are prepared to meet the needs of our seniors. In the past, the responses that we have gotten to needs assessments have really been second party. This is the first survey of this type county-wide, addressing, getting the needs from seniors from them individually and not from their caretaker and not from a provider. So we know that as our senior population grows, the needs are going to grow as well, and we need to be better prepared for it.
Well, I think this has been a wonderful model for cooperation. And I brag about you all the time, Larry. You know I do, that when I needed the resources of the Department of Aging, you guys were there for me, things I had no idea about. And once again, you have established really groundbreaking precedent that we've got to all cooperate. This isn't the west side against the east side, against the south side or the valley. We're all in this one together. Now, do you expect that the results and the way it's presented will be able to help in approaching our city leaders and those who are directing foundations?
Absolutely. Decision makers already in the city and county, all our policymakers, have received copies of the report. One of the things that Cynthia and I work on an annual basis is that our area plan, our local area plans. This will have a positive impact on directing our own resources that we currently have access to, and also preparing our systems in order for it to fulfill the needs not only now but in the future of seniors, understanding what the seniors themselves have said they need.
Right.
So that is part of our strategic plan in looking at how to disseminate the findings from the report.
Well, I noticed that in one of the statistics here, in fact, I'm going to hold this up to highlight it, that 29% of our seniors reported feelings of social isolation. That has to end.
Yes.
We've got to go out into their homes and make assessments for those needs, or get them back into the swing of things, if you will.
Yes, and I really think that is an area that takes a lot of sensitivity rather, because we know that various individuals react to different type of social activity, and there's not one type of social activity for every senior. So we need to be able to go out and touch the individual's life to find out what their specific needs are, and be able to provide a breadth of services and a breadth of opportunities for them to feel like they are no longer isolated.
Well, I think, frankly, we need to challenge the seniors themselves.
Yes.
That you're going to have to make an effort here.
Sure.
We want your input, and we want your wisdom. And a lot of these people they were key executives in their working life, and they have all those managerial skills. I mean, I can honestly see them at our senior centers, which, oh, by the way, we need to double at least. But actively participating, whether it's daycare issues for seniors or maybe residential facilities, because housing was reported as a problem for our seniors. But we want them back.
Yeah, and the good news is that we have over 172 senior centers within Los Angeles County.
Wow.
That's pretty amazing.
It really is.
One of the things Cynthia and I have been doing is we are actually creating a network for the directors of senior centers countywide. We're trying to use that forum as a way of disseminating sort of the best practice of programs,
Right.
so that our directors are up very current on the latest programming and activities that interest older persons.
Yeah.
But it really requires the older person, as you say, to also make an effort and meet us halfway. We're creating new programs, exciting opportunities at the centers, but we really want them to come and participate and be involved, help direct them. We recently had an experience at one of our senior centers where the seniors themselves were participating in an exercise class, and they said, we want more. We don't want the class. The class was a 20-week class, and after the 20 weeks, they said, we're not leaving. We want more. We love it. This is making a difference in our lives. We feel healthier. We love each other in terms of the social context that we're making. And they say, you figure it out, because we're not going anywhere. And I can tell you that senior center director was on their toes, providing more programming for them, and delighted to understand how much of an impact the class had had. So we really want seniors to be very involved with us.
Right, and you mentioned something about best practices. We do have best practices,
Yes.
and we have programs in this city and county that are working.
Yes.
And if you look at our population as a region, Los Angeles County, our population of seniors outnumbers the population of most nations. And working together on a regional approach, bringing those best practices together, we have an awful lot to share, not only with our local seniors, but with the world. And that's really what we're looking at. We're looking at being able to interface with our seniors, bring them on board, and to make sure that they get the services that they need, knowing that the baby boomer population is on its way in.
Yes, they started already.
And they've started already. And we have to make sure that what we need, that what we provide is meeting the needs.
Well, I think there is something positive about making this a leadership challenge.
Yes.
Of saying this is time for you to take the reins, not only of your destiny,
Yes.
but your children and your
Exactly.
children's children. Let's make this a city, a model of services and concern. And I think most of all that we're sincere about this.
Without
Remember,
doubt.
Laura, when we talked about people in homes where what they cared most about was somebody actually cared about them.
Correct.
And
And, you know, one of the things that we found through the survey, we really reached out to communities, to local neighborhood levels, to ensure that we had representation on this survey that was really reflective of the population of the County of Los Angeles, the City of Los Angeles, at the Councilmatic District, at the neighborhood level, at the Board of Supervisors district level. And seniors came out and helped us out by filling these out. Now we will put it also back into the community and say, the results are here. Help us make a difference in improving the systems that serve all of us, because it's really about all of our quality of life, not just seniors.
And we know that living in Los Angeles County, it's a multi-ethnic, multicultural environment.
Yes, indeed.
And as part of our
But
survey...
we got the best food.
Well, we do. We do. And as part of that, one of the things we were able to do is to have the survey in a number of languages,
Yes.
which allows us to be able to drill down and find out if there are particular needs in particular ethnic areas that we can address that are maybe not prevalent in another area. So we are really, really pleased with that aspect of our report as well.
I noticed one of the distinct features in one of the supervisorial districts was difficulty with taking medications.
Yes.
And I said to myself, that has to be language. That has to be, the instructions are being given but not comprehended. Because it really did stand out for me here in generally the downtown area. And I'm thinking, you know, one or two high school students who are in a pre-med program making home visits would really make a difference in a statistic like that. Now, how inclusive do you envision some of these programs? Could we actually build a community for seniors? You know, sort of a planned place where seniors can congregate and find their medical care and their housing needs met?
You know, actually, rather than a planned community, one of the things that's naturally occurring are called naturally occurring retirement communities.
Yeah, the NORC. That's
The
right.
NORC, you've heard that term
I've heard that
before.
term.
It's one of those lingos that we use in aging. But that's occurring now. We have communities where older people are already aging in place. Part of the survey is to also help Cynthia and I begin to more strategically plan at the neighborhood level how our agencies can be more effective in outreaching and delivering care. But Los Angeles, as you said, is usually one of the forefronts in the nation in testing different models. We actually have 2 NORCs that are operating a model development of services right now. We are all looking at their findings because we want to find out how will we utilize it in the future to plan to our local community levels. But that's already happening in Los Angeles. That's something for the future. That is now in terms of large concentrations of 75 plus or 85 plus year olds living in close proximity to one another, which really is going to challenge both of us to plan differently in terms of how we'll do delivery of care and how will we organize our services around those communities.
Right. And those are so important, and I know from seniors in my family and from what I've read, they want to age in place.
Yes.
Don't uproot me. Don't take me away from my photographs and all the rest. So how do we go about alleviating the concerns of our seniors? What's next? What should we do with all this information, Cynthia?
Well, one of the things that you can do is look at it and determine how it applies to you as an individual, how it applies to your parents, how it applies to your close relatives, and find out if they actually have those needs that have been identified in the report. If they do, try to find resources for them. In addition to that, what we are doing is we're looking at those key findings and we are identifying resources to assist those needs that have been identified. In addition to that, we're working with the area agency councils and the Commission on Aging to do some advocacy work as well.
Great. Well, we all need to be advocates. Again, we are talking about the survey of the older adult population. We thank you both so much, Cynthia and Laura. This has been a wonderful development. The award is well deserved. This is really a great document, and I look forward to relying on it in the future. I'm Paul Peterson with the Department of Aging and Aging in LA. Thank you so much for joining us today, and Laura, we're going to give you your office badge.
You're always welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Emergency Preparedness Patrol. Is your family prepared for disaster?
Mom!
Emergencies can strike at any time. That's why it's important to have a family emergency plan in case you're separated during a disaster. Have an emergency supply kit ready with non-perishable food items such as dry goods, canned goods, and water. Don't forget extra medication for elderly family members. And extra pet food, too. Include a first aid kit, a battery-operated radio, extra batteries, and, of course, a waterproof flashlight. And to reduce the risk of serious injury, fasten all freestanding items securely, including water heaters. This family gets a passing grade for being prepared. Emergency preparedness. It's an LA thing.
And the award-winning LA City View Channel 35. It's all about LA. In LA this week, travelers can expect tighter security at LAX and other U.S. airports. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ellen Chang. LA Update is the nation's first daily newscast on a municipal station. Hello, I'm Ellen Chang with your LA Update. Here's what's making news in the city on this Friday.
Last month, the city's Animal Cruelty Task Force seized 17 fighting dogs.
Talk shows that talk the talk.
Welcome to LA Roundtable.
Welcome to Council Week in Review.
I'm Mary Grady for the Los Angeles Police Department.
Hi, I'm Brett Pomerantz, and welcome to the Neighborhood Cafe.
With over a dozen original series programs for city departments.
Luckily, they diffused it. There were something like 25 squad cars there.
Award-winning PSAs.
Pull to the right! Save it, buddy. The ball call.
The average car weighs 6,000 pounds. The average bicycle with rider weighs 170 pounds, give or take a few. And if the two collide, bug splatter.
Live gavel-to-gavel city council meetings and commission coverage.
Now it's time for general public comment. All these are items that are not formally on our agenda. Recognizing that cargo theft has been a crime that would impact the free flow of commerce within the Port of Los Angeles.
Thought-provoking, historical, and cultural programming.
The Los Angeles Basin was the most prolific agricultural area within America.
When William first arrived and saw the dry, dusty little town, population 9,000, he was not impressed.
Live events as they're happening, seen only on LA City View Channel 35. And the
You can see the dignitaries are arriving from 43 countries. And we see the Secretary of State, Warren Christopher.
Innovative and cutting edge.
Welcome to your LAFD in action.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to CityWorks.
The EAD is also making it possible for agencies such as the Park Rangers and others to purchase bicycles to use in some patrol operations.
My name is Jeanette Bolden. I am the women's head track and field coach at UCLA.
Shows with impact that will affect your life.
Hanging with the homies, slinging drugs, doing time.
LA City View Channel 35. Your city, your channel.
right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to begin our council meeting. Welcome to Los Angeles City Hall. Welcome to City Council Chambers. This is the meeting of the City of Los Angeles City Council. Today is Tuesday, October 5th. Council meets 3 times a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. All meetings are open to the public. For those who cannot make it to City Hall, meetings are televised via cable channel 35 or can be viewed by visiting our website, www.lacity.org. This meeting is now in session. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Hahn, Weezer, Koretz, Krikorian, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Wesson-Zine, Garcetti. 10 members present. Any quorum, Mr. President?
Thank you. First item of business, please.
Is approval of the minutes.
Mr. Parks, seconded by Ms. Perry.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Commendatory resolutions are approved.
Mr. President, this is Tuesday, and it is time for the flag salute.
All please stand. Mr. Labange, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Mr. Clerk. Next item of business, please.
Mr. President, do you wish to run through the agenda?
Let's do the agenda.
First item on the agenda is an ordinance notice for public hearing. There is a card on that, and council should have 12 members at some time today.
I'll hold that, please.
Items 2 through 20 are items for which public hearings have been held. On item 7, the committee met this morning, and the committee report has not yet been circulated, and I believe Ms. Perry wishes to call that special.
Ms. Perry?
President, I do want to call this special. We have a motion that is being prepared right now on item 7. We did disapprove it in committee this morning, and the motion is forthcoming, so we'll be able to take an action today.
We will hold that. Thank you. Call that special.
And, Mr. President, on item 9, there is a request to continue that matter 2 weeks to October 19th.
I think Mr. Reyes wants that continued.
Thank you, Council President. Can we continue number 8 for 1 day as well?
Number 8 continued and number 9 continued.
Yes, and number 9 continued for 2 weeks.
All right. Mr. Clerk, you have that?
Yes, continue item 8 to tomorrow, Wednesday, October 6th, and item 9 to October 19th.
You're welcome.
And, Mr. President, do you wish to hold the other 2 ordinances till we get 12 members?
We'll hold them until we have our 12. Specials, Mr. Parks?
Yes, I just want to make a verbal technical amendment for 10. Some material didn't get in the committee report that was discussed at committee.
We can hold that as special, and we can do it at that time?
I could just...
Is it small?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if it's a large change or a small change.
A couple of points. We'd like to ensure the CAOC, LA, City Attorney, Office of Finance, and BTAC work together to create a citywide employment incentive program not limited to empowerment zones to hire local, disabled, and indigent employees.
Without opposition, that is approved. Any specials, colleagues? On those items, open the roll. Mr. Parks, you have something else?
Hold 20, I'm sorry, special on 20, there's a written motion coming.
Okay. On the immediate items, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Next item, please.
Items 21 through 34 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration, and there is a request on item 29 to continue that matter 2 weeks to October 19th.
Without opposition, 29 will be continued to October 19th. Any specials, Ms. Perry?
31 on the desk. I'm awaiting an amendment. It's a technical amendment, but I need to do it in writing, so if you can just hold that for a bit. Yeah.
31 will be held on the desk, Mr. Parks.
A technical amendment for 22. We just want to ask that Council File 05-2444 and Council File 09-25 57 are received and filed as part of this file.
Very well, without opposition.
President, you do have cards on that item.
Then we will hold that as a special.
And you have cards also on item 23, 26, 30, and 30. And I do believe Mr. Alarcon wanted to call item 34 special.
34 will be called special. The items with cards, please call those special. Hold those as special. Any other specials, Mr. Labange?
Yeah, on item number 11, I didn't hear you talk about those brackets. I'd like to talk about 11.
Okay, we'll have to reopen that then.
Thank you.
Because those matters were approved.
Thank you.
So on the items that we're currently on, any other specials? Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Let's go back to 11, the reconsideration. On reconsideration number 11 from Mr. Labange, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
And 11's will be reconsidered.
And Mr. President, Council now has 12 members. Do you wish to take up the two ordinances?
Let's do the ordinances.
And those are items 2 and 3.
2 and 3 on the ordinances, colleagues. On the ordinances, open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Those are approved. Ms. Perry?
3 to go forthwith, please.
3 forthwith. Thank you, Ms. Perry. Mr. Clerk, next item, please.
That does take care of the items called special. Does Council wish to go back to public comment?
We will do public comment at this time. And if you are here for an item for the members of the public, Van Nuys Council Chambers, San Pedro, or City Hall, if you're here for an item that will be heard, please fill out a card before the item is called, so we will have that card so we can call you at that time. We are now in public comment period. John Walsh, public comment. Mr. Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at Hollywood Highlands, HIGHLANDS.org, emailing at HollywoodDems, DEMS, at gmail.com, and twittering at HollywoodDems. And Eric was 10 minutes late. I checked with the clock. You were 10 minutes late. I would now like to read a list, and in this list, the next mayor is contained. These are the 11 most likely candidates for mayor. Austin Butner, Rick Caruso, Laura Chick, Eric Garcetti, Wendy Gruhl, Janice Hahn, Alex Padilla, Jan Perry, Mark Ridley Thomas, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Zev Yaroslavsky. One of those will be your next mayor. If you want to find out, check our website. Now, we had a lot of problem in this state about false ID. And we have, Ms. Whitman says she cannot tell false ID. Well, I'd like to see I want you to know what this says is California ID in 15 minutes. In other words, if you want false ID, and I'm going to give you these cards are handed in downtown. The sheriffs are investigating this because I got the Board of Supervisors. Go to our website, HollywoodHighlands.org, and it will show you how to tell a false ID. But 432 South Broadway, Los Angeles. Phone number 213-841-7243. California ID in 15 minutes. Monterey Park, 7133 Pacific Boulevard. Meg Whitman, are you listening? Brown, are you listening? They're not listening. And that phone number is 323-586-9411. Now, I'm giving this to Mr. Zine now, and I want some action on this. HollywoodHighlands.org. LA Times, cyberbullies. HollywoodHighlands.org. And I signed up for number 22. Give this to them. You want a false ID? Anybody. There's the address. There's the phone number for Meg Whitman or anybody in this state.
Bill Hoy.
Good morning, members of the LA City Council. My name is Bill Huey. I'm the president of Fair Housing Coalition. We're a group of people who believe in equality under the law for both landlords and renters. For 2 years, I've been coming here talking about how the housing department has an agenda against landlords, and it's driving small mom-and-pop landlords out of business. At the same time, You know, it's become very easy to demonize landlords. We can be painted as world billionaires, and because 63% of the public are renters, I can see how that would be a political advantage to help someone get elected to public office. Well, now so many landlords are being bankrupt because they're in REAP and they're selling their properties to developers. Many of the working poor who live in these buildings are becoming homeless. That is one component that's adding to the homeless issue in LA. I know many homeless people who write to me and say, I had a one-bedroom apartment in Hollywood or Silver Lake or downtown. My landlord went bankrupt, and now I'm on the street. But today, I have proof of something. Usually, I come here with information. I have proof that the number 2 person at the LA Housing Department has a very cozy relationship with one of these agencies that goes out and signs up landlords when they're in REAP to start paying their money to the city. I have a documented letter here by members of the Housing Department who want the City Council to look into this. This is blatant corruption. And also, if you look into the REAP account, that account where when the city collects rent money, they put it into a major REAP account, you'll find that there's $2 million missing. So I urge the City Council to call the City Controller and take a look at that account, because these are letters and phone calls that I get. I write for 2 different magazines, read by 70,000 landlords in LA County. So people are calling me, renters are calling me who don't want their landlord to go out of business and lose their home, and landlords are calling me, a lot of mom and pops. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Can I give this to Sergeant at Arms?
Sergeant Arms, can you please take that? Thank you. Wayne Spindler.
How you doing? Good to see you. Okay.
Well, we have here today item number 7, which will be dealing with some sort of DWP rate increase. We keep hearing every day that, I know from the Metropolitan Water District, there is a 13-cent savings that's supposed to be coming to ratepayers in this coming quarter. And in the next quarter, it's going to go down even more. Angelinos, that's what we're called. We're outside of the county of Los Angeles. We're referred to as the schmucks that still stay here. But we continue to conserve more water, and our water rates keep going up. And the reason this is happening, and I've tried to illustrate this point, is that the pension costs are not going to go down. So the less ratepayers you have, the more per ratepayer it's going to cost, because we're not bringing in businesses, we're losing those businesses, we're losing landlords, we're losing people that pay rates. And that means the people that remain, similar to insurance pools, the paying customers are going to continue to receive increases no matter how much water or how much electric and power you conserve. And that's why the only solution that's going to come for this city, that's going to come for the DWP, is to address the pension issue. Either you sell the DWP to pay off the pensions, you sell it with an assumption of those pensions, or you place the city in overall Chapter 9 proceedings and declare bankruptcy for the city. That way you can take the pensions, separate the pensions from the rest of the assets of the city, and give them a settlement depending on how many cents on the dollar you want to give them on a cram-down plan. That's what they call it in bankruptcy. But the more we keep playing these games, the more businesses are going to leave. I just drove down San Fernando Road today and saw another 15 properties vacant. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Spindler. Phyllis Doherty is our next speaker. After that will be Scott Wright. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm here to thank Councilman Krikorian and Councilman Labange for coming out on Sunday and providing us with the opportunity to have a community walk to distribute information on this suspect in a murder in Valley Village of a young woman who was just scheduled to get married. Not only was she murdered, but her place was burned. We had the opportunity to unite people from communities all over the city. We were all out there. We haven't done that in a long time. And I was overwhelmed with the response of the people in the community. The car wash that wanted this up on their front window, the laundromats, the people in liquor stores, restaurants, who were so eager to be part of trying to watch for this person who is known to frequent that area. So I wanted to suggest that we develop a way where we can have an email list that when there's an incident like this in any of your communities and you're going to have a walk, we can all join you and come from all over the city and be part of getting out in the community. Let them see new faces and let them see that everybody in the city cares when this happens, because when it happens to one family, it happens to all of us.
Thank you, Ms. Doherty. Scott Wright is our next speaker. Then we'll go to Van Nuys, and Miriam Fogler will be our next speaker. Good morning, sir.
Hi. Very briefly, I'm just speaking in support of Mr. Hui. In calling, as a small businessman and a landlord, I house low-income tenants, and they are my customers. And if I don't have customers, I'm out of business. And if I'm out of business, then they're out of a home. I need you to be more in support of landlords and tenants' rights, and not pick winners and losers, but pick what's right. And that's why I'm calling also for an investigation of the housing department to find out what's going on there. And I beg of you, please look into this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We'll next go to Van Nuys, where we can remotely watch from our Van Nuys council chambers. Miriam Fogler is our first speaker. She'll be followed by Donna Pearman. Good morning, Ms. Fogler.
Folks, this is the one coming to the wrong people. Politicians have been greedy since the day of the Tower of Babel fell. Tell you right here, folks, Propositions 22 and 25 are the most terrible state of turmoil for the state of California. If those two pass, especially if 22 passes, you can call good riddance to the state of California and let it fall into the ocean, because you won't have any funds coming in through 22, because redevelopment will take it all, folks. They're going to take you to the gravy train. And they're gonna suck you out like vampires. You won't see no property tax money going to the state, to the counties, and the cities, because city council here and then Mayor Antonio went up there about 4 or 5 months ago and said we need to stop the money being taken from by the state from the LA City CRA here, because they want to do their Taj Mahal big high-rise projects. The developers who give them big contributions, and they're their pals. They give them favoritisms. It's so corrupt here, and they blame the city employees' pensions and health care, whatever, on that, and yet they squander money on the stock market, and here they got these propositions on the ballot to take away the majority, to take away the two-thirds vote of number 25, to make it a simple majority, folks, for them not to show up to get, in other words, if they don't show up to work, then they will not have their benefits. If they get what they want, then they will. They want the majority vote, folks. Don't give it to them, because that's how they want to keep spending, and that's what they're going to do. They're going to collect, and keep spending. They're already talking about spending more on redevelopment. Don't do it. The redevelopment is bad.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Donna Pearman, also in Van Nuys. She'll be followed by Rick Nightingale.
Yeah.
Good morning, Donna.
Hi. Sorry I missed the city council on Friday. It was a very quick meeting. We have two very dangerous items on the ballot that must be voted down. They are connected in a way. Prop 22 and 25. Prop 22 that protects redevelopment projects. The CRA. CRA has been bleeding the city very dry, and this will let them keep more of our money. And we won't have our city services. Listen to me and Miriam Fogler. They will get a sweetheart deal. Not good for us, good for them and the city council and the mayor. Just as dangerous as 25. They finally will get rid of the two-thirds vote. Two-thirds votes protects us from added taxes and fines. Not wanted by most people. City council wants a simple majority with low voter turnout. They can easily get a simple majority. These are put on by the city council and legislation, not the voters. They wanted, this will hurt Proposition 13. Howard Jarvis, why don't you go out there against Proposition 22 and 25? Leonard Shapiro says that the CRA hasn't had his books looked at for 23 years. We need to keep strict control on the CRA. And if they can't, we need to disband them. We need to keep two-thirds vote. If you can't continue two-thirds of its people, it's not meant to be. Again, vote no on 22 and 25. This was done by the legislature so that they can have control over money, so that we don't have any control over this. We need to get rid of the CRA. The CRA is a problem. I wanted to say, legislature, two-thirds vote. This legislature is doing this. And, last of all, I just want to say about the pension, that the person shouldn't go after the people's pension on the DWP. He should be going after the developers, who is the reason why our city has gone down the hill is because of the CRA, not city employees.
Thank you, Ms. Pearman. Just a legal point of clarification, that does not apply to the City Council, those state measures in any way. Rick Nightingale is our next speaker. Also in Van Nuys, then Ankar Patel.
Yeah, Rick Nightingale. I'll tell you, you people better get out and vote. It is very important this time. I'm telling you right now, I believe in you vote for the best person, but I'll tell you, if you don't vote Republican and get these people out, we are in dire need. Just like how they went after Meg Whitman. I'll tell you, it is just unbelievable when you see politics the way it is. When the slander and so forth, and it's just that, just point the finger and then you're guilty until you prove that you're innocent. And how they throw people under the bus, and unbelievable. And since she about illegals and this Diaz, she is thrown under the bus by it's just terrible. Because Gloria Aldridge, well, she's running after the bus anyway. But you have to get out and vote. And if you don't understand it, please read what you're going to do. You got to look at it. I mean, just same as like if you saw the debate and so forth, you think that, oh, she's guilty. She did something wrong, Meg Whitman. She didn't. She did not do anything wrong. If you watch the Fox News and so forth, they have Megyn Kelly and Gloria Van Sutton. They're both lawyers. They had Gloria on there. They crucified her. Showed her how everything that she did was illegal. She even turned around and took her client that you never do and throw her under the bus. And it happened. It was all false, and Whitman did everything you want. You got to hire somebody. She went to the agency and tried to get somebody, and they sent her somebody. She turned around and had a driver's license, had a Social Security number, just like one of the people here turned around and showed you how easy it is to get a driver's license down in L.A. You can get them. And she did and that. But no, everybody just thinks she's guilty, and she's against amnesty. And Brown. If Brown gets in, hang on. I'm telling you right now,
Mr.
hang
President,
on. Thank you.
the governor's race is not within the jurisdiction of the City Council.
Yes, just a reminder, this is for things that are directly under the jurisdiction of the City of Los Angeles, so connection will have to be made directly to it, or else we will be in violation of the State Brown Act. Ankar Patel is our next speaker, and then Bruce Darian, also in Van Nuys.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Most people in these halls in Los Angeles City who follow local politics know that this city favors the politically connected in terms of development deals, business contracts, requests for proposals, and more recently, Laker tickets, right? The politically connected get a lot of stuff here. Now, the way to get some of that power back into the hands of the people, again, I keep on bringing up the internet. So I was on 311 for 30 minutes pointing out some flaws on the website. There are many. I was pointing out a few specific ones. And I actually got a hold of a person after 30 minutes. And one of the problems is everything is in PDF format on LA City, right? PDF, that means I have to download it. If I go to a library and I want to look at some of these budget documents, I want to look at the agenda even for this council meeting, I have to download it. Many libraries don't let you download. PDF is not transparent or accessible to the people. How much does it cost to transfer to make everything from a PDF to something searchable online? This lady on in the Information Technology Department told me it would be less than $10,000 to transfer everything that's in PDF into something searchable and easy to access online. And the reason why they didn't do it is because of budget. $10,000 to make it more transparent and accessible. And that's a budget problem. We got Tony Cardenas over here wasting millions of dollars on the financial management system. I'll continue to bring that up because that's a joke of a project. Your websites are supposed to be in the hands of information technology. You have 20 staff people. You can't control your own website. You can't put information on there. Ed Reyes over here is talking about kayaking in the LA River. That's what he's got on the front page of his website. Kayaking in the LA River. You kidding me? Come on, people. Let's make these websites a point of interaction where we can actually get involved with our city. LACleansweep.com. If you want a transparent government, get involved. Thank you, Bernard Parks, for coming out to the candidate forum. That was, I should have said that in the first place. Thank you again for coming out. We're going to have more of these.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bruce Darien is our next speaker, also in Van Nuys. After that will be Louis E.
Morning, City Council members,
Morning.
President Garcetti. It's been about 9 months or so since I've spoken here, and it's been about 5 years now since I've been talking about the state historic landmark Malibu Pier. Just so I can be clear here before I'm interrupted or anything like that, the nexus between the Malibu Pier and Los Angeles is that the contractors that performed work at Malibu Pier are Los Angeles contractors. Their offices are here in Los Angeles. They have Los Angeles licenses to operate their businesses, and they spread their corruption from city to city, state to state, around the United States. One of the contractors is being investigated by another state back east for their fraudulent work in sole source contracting. But let me make it clear, with just the Bell scandal here, which is not even the tip of the iceberg, it's in a little guppy pond compared to Malibu Pier. And that doesn't have to do with the building of the pier, it has to do with corruption and malfeasance in government. And I've been quite clear on this for a long time. I've spoken many years over this issue, and it is being outed. Barbara Boxer is familiar with this. She's been written to on this issue. Jerry Brown has covered it up as Attorney General, the malfeasance of these Los Angeles contractors that perform services here for the city of Los Angeles in public contracts for Los Angeles. So when their corruption is in one state project or a county project, then it goes over to the city coffers. And let me be clear on this. This is widespread here, okay? Jerry Brown has covered it up. Barbara Boxer's covered it up. Brad Sherman's covered it up. I've notified Meg Whitman. I've also notified Carly Fiorina on it. It'll be interesting to see if they're willing to talk about this. All these politicians are talking about corruption in government and outing public fraud that saps the public fiscal. I'll wait to see what happens. With the election coming up here, hopefully the taxpayers will do the right thing and force the issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Darien. Our last speaker for general public comment is Louis E. Good morning, sir.
Hi, good morning, Council. My name is Louis. Not giving my real name due to the vindictive nature of certain councilmen against small business owners in L.A. I'm a landlord here, and we're the largest small business owner in the city, yet the city, for some reason, is waging a discriminatory war against us, is enacting all these laws and regulations that hurt us, and is putting us out of business. And meanwhile, it's destroying the affordable housing stock in the city. So as a landlord, I have to decide whether to get out of L.A. So I'm getting out of L.A. and investing in non-rent controlled cities right along our border. And these properties will go up in value. These cities will make more revenue while L.A. loses out. Also, the city needs to investigate the REIT program, rent escrow account program. There's a huge conflict of interest with it regarding the outreach contractors and certain members of the LA Housing Department that have the same law offices as the outreach contractors and are actually suing landlords and making money off city law. This is unbelievable what the city is doing. This should be investigated immediately. I'm also a renter as well. I live in Eric Garcetti's district. And I live in a beautiful non-rent control building where the housing is nice. If you want to destroy housing, just make the rent control laws even worse, which is what you're already doing. The people behind me are part of the Fair Housing Coalition, and we're not going to give up until something's done about this. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate everybody's public comment. We have a request to take item 34 out of order. Mr. Alarcon?
Council members, item 34 is a resolution
to recognize the California-Mexico Health Initiative, which was a program that was started in January 2001 as part of the California Policy Research Center at the University of California, in conjunction with consulate generals throughout California. The purpose of this endeavor is to better educate immigrants to their health service, what services are available to them, and also to better understand culturally how the health system here works as opposed to how it may work in their country of origin. And so I've been involved with this, frankly, since I was a state senator, and we've been working on this initiative. There was a press conference at 9 o'clock. My apologies. I had a little health disaster with my daughter. As we arrived at the child care center, I had to take her to her mother because she was not able to go to school today. And even those little small tragedies bring to light how a parent feels when they don't know what services are available for their child. Primero quiero dar las gracias a los cónsul generales que están presentes hoy. Tenemos 7 países que están representando en este proyecto. We have 7 countries who are participating now. It started as a binational effort with Mexico, but has grown to include Ecuador, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Peru, and of course Mexico, Colombia as well. And this provides consulate generals the opportunity to work with officials in the state of California to ensure in a state where so many people originate from these 7 countries that we could do a better job of communicating and effectively providing services. I want to tell you that this is not just a policy conversation. This is a hands-on approach. These consul generals have established programs. For example, they have a program where a immigrant from their country can go, an immigrant to our country from their country can go to their consulate general, and specifically there's a designated window where they can get information about how to obtain health services in this country. But it also extends to their country, where they may have family members who need services. And so by getting the information from their consulate general, there's a better cultural exchange, there's a better understanding, there's a better communication, and the confidence level is much higher. And this benefits all of us. It benefits us because it reduces epidemic possibilities. It improves the health condition not only for the families that are here, but those who may be in transition from their originating country to California. It helps them come to us in a healthier condition and also with a better understanding of how things work here. So this resolution is to recognize this important event. There's going to be there's a conference going on right now in Guanajuato, Mexico. My Chief of Staff, Saeed Ali, who was one of the initiators of this concept when he worked in the State Senate, is representing my office over there. This Saturday at Hansen Dam, we are bringing together dozens and dozens of health agencies to provide direct information and services to the people of the Northeast San Fernando Valley. Well, anybody who comes is certainly welcome to come to Hansen Dam this Saturday. Contact my office for information on the time. That would be 818-756-9115, and they can provide you with the information. At this time, I'd like to recognize the Consul Generales who are present today. We have Mr. Eddie Bedon, Consul General of Ecuador in Los Angeles, Mr. Walter Duran, Consul General de El Salvador in Los Angeles, Pablo Garcia, Consul General de Guatemala. We also have José Alberto Acevedo, Consul General de Nicaragua, Javier Cuadros, acting General Counsel, acting General Counsel of Peru, Zinia Vargas Mora, Consul General de Costa Rica. We also have representing Honduras, Consul Jose Rivera, and Public Affairs Officer for Consulate General of Colombia, Edwin Ospina. I believe Jose Rivera is going to speak on behalf of the entire group. He is the Consul of Honduras in Los Angeles.
Good morning, council members. On behalf of the governments of Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia, we are today celebrating the inauguration of the 10th Binational Health Week, which represents an effort of hundreds of health agencies, both private and public, as well as a great effort from the community, who offer free health services to all of our nationals. We want to thank the support of the City Council through the Council Member Richard Alarcón. We also hope that this initiative also opens new opportunities for more programs that will benefit our communities that reside in the City of Los Angeles. Thank you again.
Council members, as you vote on this measure, I anticipate your support, but I can't think of a more important year for this relationship to exist because of the National Healthcare Reform Act that was recently passed and the fact that we don't even know what all of that means. So you can imagine how difficult it is for an immigrant family to try and understand our health system when most of the people of the United States don't understand what is going to happen with our health care reform. So I appreciate your support, and of course, the healthier our immigrants are who live in our community, the healthier we all will be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alarcón. Thank you very much for bringing this forward to the Council of Generals. It's so good to see many of you. Members, what we must realize, this dynamic city of Los Angeles has over 110 consulates. This is next only to Washington, D.C. and Hong Kong, as opposed to a national capital where there's so many consulates here. And you're in extra hands of angels who help connect people with any challenge that they have, maybe back at home or here in the United States. So I wanted to thank you for your efforts. It's an important aspect, and I don't remember that in my 10th, 11th grade Mr. Goddard government class that they gave enough definition for the importance of consulates and how it is. So I will talk to Mr. Cortinas, the superintendent, and ask that we make sure we amp that up, because this city of ours, which to many countries, 38 of them, second largest population is the Los Angeles region, says that we should continue to stand up and work with all people to make Los Angeles the great city that it is. Thank you very much. Mr. Alarcón, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the entire Consular Corps that is here today. We very much are honored to have your presence here. Muchas gracias por venir. And thank you very much to Mr. Alarcón. With that, let's go ahead and we'll take a vote on this item. Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That is approved. We'll send that forthwith to the mayor for his signature. Thank you very much. We appreciate you, and it's an honor to have your flags here in the council chambers with us today. Next item called special, please.
Item 1, called special for cards.
Okay, item number 1 is before us. We have a card from John Walsh. Following Mr. Walsh will be Susan Taylor. If we could just clear out the center aisle, Mr. Labange. Hold on one second, Mr. Walsh. We'll be right with you.
Thank you. I'd like to address the Consul General of Guatemala. They killed one of your citizens in this city the other day, and nothing happened. I'm saying that to the...
Excuse me. Under the Brown Act, if you could please address the item before us.
Boy, I tell you, I'm going to go to Guatemala where they have some rights.
Excuse me, sir.
Okay, this HollywoodHighlands.org. For those of you who haven't read the agenda, this is the way they're going to make a few bucks. They're adding a new tax called a permit fee for animals under the age of 6 months for a transfer. Now, please, you know, I addressed in Bow Wow Talk last time I was here last Tuesday, why must you put on the backs of animals? I'm not talking about the city council, I'm talking about dumb animals. HollywoodHighlands.org. Thank you.
Susan Taylor is our next speaker. After that is Phyllis Doherty. Very good morning to you.
Good morning. Wow, I never thought I would ever be here back in 2000, when I worked with a bunch of humane people on getting the license differential, it became clear that there was a big loophole in that law, and that was people who bred animals and sold them in the city of Los Angeles only had to say the animal was bred outside the city of Los Angeles to avoid paying any fees. I went to the Department of Animal Services, and I've worked very hard with all of them since, so I want to thank them. I want to thank Linda Barth and Kathy Davis and Dove LaSalle and all of you for understanding that this makes it fair now. Anyone who now sells or transfers an animal in the city of Los Angeles is going to have to pay the same amount of money. Now, I know in the past people have thought that maybe breeding animals was done as a hobby, but now with our financial situation, people are breeding them more and more to actually make money. And we shouldn't have them making money off the backs of an animal. I went this morning and just took off the internet for the Recycler, one internet page. There was 110 entries for animals being sold in the city of Los Angeles totaling $15,000 of what I could see. You're now going to require them to pay tax and have a business license. Actors and Others for Animals will be celebrating our 40th anniversary next year, and that entire 40 years we have worked cooperatively with the city. And so I just want to thank you. This is an important step, and it's going to be an important tool to help save animals and help make sure that everyone is paying the proper fees. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your activism on this issue. Phyllis Doherty is our next speaker. After that is Wayne Spindler.
Phyllis Doherty, the Animal Issues Movement. We're so happy to be here, as Sue said, because this is something that has been overlooked for a very, very long time. We do have people advertising, bringing in smuggled animals, animals that are bred just, or they say at least, are bred just outside the city limits, and selling them with no permits and no protection for the animals. This provides protection for the animals. When animals come in from other areas, we have no idea whether or not they have different diseases to which our animals will not be immune and to which will not be protected under our vaccines. We need to know where they come from. We need to have the people registered that are distributing them. And we also need to be sure that this is not conducted as just a tax-free cottage business, because it affects all of us. The animals will not be spayed or neutered for the most part. They, in turn, can go ahead and add to the population even more. We're grateful to you to bring an equality in what's happening to the animals of the city and helping us try to continue the progress we're making. The fewer animals we have in the city, the better chance we have to control the attacks and the bad things that are happening to animals. I know that sounds like a sort of a back way of coming into the protection of animals, but it is true. We need to know where they come from, where they are going, and who has them. And we thank you so much for having us here today to finally get a chance to do this.
Thank you, Phyllis. Wayne Spindler is our next speaker. After that will be Miriam Fogler in Van Nuys.
Very good. We have another stupid law by the craziest, insane body in the world. We got Bill Rosendahl over there, chickens and ducks and cats and dogs, even homeless people. Everybody lives there. So now we're going to charge $120 for any animal under the age of 6 months to register them. I mean, what better message can we send all of our neighboring cities and counties in this city than that we are the place that you don't go to? Don't come to LA, don't set up a business. In fact, take your businesses and set them up outside the city of Los Angeles, and then bring everything in to get customers. Like, for example, these mobile food units that Councilman LaBonge has made his mantra of life for. Yeah, how do you tell what animals are covered by this? Birds, those are animals. How about a little squirrel? You know, how about one of these hamsters or something? The value of the animal isn't mentioned in this. You're going to take a cat that's adopted at a shelter in Ventura. they're going to move, everybody's talking, that's it. Okay, now I wake everybody up.
Mr. Spindler, if you could.
So now, you can show some decorum. So now, no matter what the value of the animal is, if somebody saved this animal in a shelter in Ventura, rents an apartment in Los Angeles, you got to, and it's a 5-month-old cat, you got to pay $120 to register this animal. This is insane. You got to stop this. Enough with this taxation. You don't care about the animals. This has nothing to do with the animals. This is simply about raising revenue and driving businesses and people away from the city. We need them to come here. We need to stop discriminating against people for having a pet. Thank you.
Thank you. Miriam Fogler is our next speaker, and Van Nuys. After that's Donna Pearman.
We told you so what these people are doing, taxation for representation, folks. Propositions 22, 25, this is referring to the same thing. They are trying to take money away from you to spend it for their own projects for themselves. Politicians are corrupt. That's what my theme is. And the idea is that they're crooked and they're corrupt, and they need to be regulated, and they need to be scrutinized, they need to be checked. What they're doing, they're using tax. They're like the Tea Party. Remember when the Boston Tea Party, when the people threw the tea into the water there, protesting the tax on tea. This is the same thing, folks. They are doing the same thing with Prop 22. They're trying to take the tax money, to use tax increment money that they're taking for property tax CRA, and 25 to change from 2/3 vote in the legislature to a simple majority in the legislature. That's why they're not there, folks. Why do you think they're doing this? Because they need to raise revenue to spend. So you need to vote no on 22 and 25 and vote no on this one, this outrageous thing. Item number 1 here, okay? We have a war with the politicians, our leaders. That's who we have a war with. I hate to see the guillotine starting up again, because in France they had 4 times they had to do it. I'm hoping we don't have to do that to you, Mr. Garcetti. I'm not threatening. It's the public, okay? You have a war with us. This is a war. And you got to stop this charade. This is ridiculous. Get your mind together. We can make laws and we can repeal them. And we can take this back. Proposition 25, Proposition 22 was done in 2004 to fix the transportation bill. Rosendahl, you can't do anything about that because it is all about CRA. It's redevelopment. That's what they want to do, is clean us out.
Donna Pearman is our next speaker.
Hello. I want to say this is a very bad law, because basically what you're going to get is people are not going to register their animal because they're not going to be able to afford the $120. A lot of these people they're living from paycheck to paycheck, especially with people that have, they want to get a child, an animal, and now they've got $120 to go on top of everything that they have to pay for this animal. They already have to pay for shots. They already have to pay for every shot upon the earth. They already have to pay for follow-ups. They already have to pay for food. They already have to pay for everything that will make that animal comfortable. And then the problem now we got is that it also says that it doesn't specify which animal. So now are you going to have to register for frogs and toads? Register for fish? They may be under 6 months old. And how can you tell? So this is a very bad one, and basically what you want to do is that you want to be able to add more fees and permits, because the fact is the CRA is stealing all our money. Our redevelopment is on number 22, that is stealing all our money, and that is why you need to come up with added revenue that didn't exist in the first place. And that's why you need to hit the lowest, poorest people and the middle class who simply want to give an animal to their child, or maybe an animal for themselves, so that they can show that they care for these animals. And now they won't be able to register them, because now they'll just have to find a way to break the law, because they won't be able to afford the $120, because $120 to council members probably pocket change. So you probably wouldn't understand. Vote no on this. Vote no on number 1. And on 22 and 25, vote
Rick
no,
Nightingale
folks.
is our next speaker.
Yeah, Rick Nightingale. I'll tell you, you're making it very hard for people to have animals. An animal could turn around and soothe the people that are hurting. And there's so many people that are hurting. And you're making it that it's a penalty to own an animal. Every time before it used to just get a license fee for about $6 or $10 or $12, and that's it. And then you have to have the shots to get around, get the license, and that's the way it should be. But now you put all these fees on the backs of animals, and you think that these people are going to pay. So then, if most people, they're just not going to pay. So it comes back down to the animal, that they don't get their shots because they don't have this and that. And then you turn around and you want people to adopt an animal. And how many people are going to, these kids and their parents going to go and spend that kind of money to adopt an animal? And now you want to put another fee. I mean, you're just trying to pass your bad judgment on the money, the way you spend it, and find new revenues and so forth on the backs of the poor and the needy and the animals that can't speak for themselves. And how do you expect that when you want people to turn around and adopt an animal to turn around and pay more fees? It's just ridiculous. And then where's the money that they do spend? Where does it go? Because you people keep robbing to turn around all these other areas to turn around and do your little agendas. I cannot believe the stuff that you people discuss, like the riverbed and have the waterway and canoeing and this. And who cares about that crap? Yeah. The city is starving, and you guys are doing these other garbage things. I wish you would straighten up and figure out how to do it right. Thank you.
Thank you. That'll close our general public comment for this item. We now have the vote before us on item number 1. Please prepare the roll. Mr. Koretz, last minute speaker.
Yeah, I just think it needs to be said, because obviously this measure is largely misunderstood, that we're just closing a loophole to make it more difficult for breeders to get around this particular loophole. We're not trying to tax the general public. We're trying to enact a policy that we think will be better for the animals and the people in the city of Los Angeles. This is not just a taxing measure, and I think it's being misread as that by the general public, if the speakers are any indication. So I thought we should just point that out.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and prepare the roll on this item and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That item is approved. Next item, please.
Item 7, the item was being held on the desk for the committee report, which has now been circulated.
Okay. Item 7, that committee report has been circulated. Anybody wishing to speak on 7? Ms. Perry, did you want to speak on?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. There is a motion now on all of your desks. We met about this issue this morning in committee, and we did have a quorum, and it was recommended to disapprove with the understanding that I would prepare this motion, and thank you very much to Mr. Cardenas for putting his second on this, to request the Department of Board of Water and Power Commissioners to reconcile the potential impact of a water rate adjustment factor increase on the city's water conservation efforts, and to determine whether ongoing adjustments would create a disincentive for consumers to save, and then also to ask the Board of the Department of Water and Power to identify prior years that the water system's annual financial revenue targets were exceeded, and identify how those surplus funds were expended, whether they were directed into other programs, whether they were rebates to the ratepayers, and to request the Board of the Department of Water and Power to address any financial revenue target discrepancies between shortage year rates and the water revenue adjustments factor through a restructured water rate scheme or proposal. And then, in deference to the department, since they're very concerned about the time frame, they graciously agreed to get this all back in 15 days. And because since the onus and the burden is on them to be able to get this information together for us, I agreed to let them have 15 days, and it would go back to committee in 15 days. And that's basically all I have to say. If anybody has any questions, a representative from the Department of Water and Power is here to answer any of your questions. But I ask for your support on this motion so we can drill down on these issues that have been raised by the motion and get some more extensive answers on the record.
Any other members wishing to be heard on this item? Mr. Labange?
Mr. McDaniels, if you want to just give us a report from Water and Power.
Hello, my name is Jim McDaniel. I'm the Senior Assistant General Manager from Department of Water and Power in charge of the water system. The item before you today is a part of our rates called the Water Revenue Adjustment Factor. This is a key component of a very environmentally progressive rate structure that we have in the City of Los Angeles that allows us to have no fixed fee in our rates. So our customers basically only pay for the water they use. There's no fixed part of their bill. In most water utilities, in fact, just about every other major city I know, there's a fixed fee, can be $10, $15 a month that you pay whether you use any water or not. We felt at the time that these rates were developed that that was counter to the conservation message we were trying to send, so we came up with what they call 100% volumetric. You only pay for what you use. Part of the trade-off is if you have a 100% volumetric rate, you have to have some component of your rate structure that guarantees that there'll be a minimum level of revenue that you'll collect so that the people that loan you money, bondholders and whatnot, are assured that they're going to get repaid. And that's what this Water Revenue Adjustment Factor is. It's not the whole budget, but it's a portion of the budget to guarantee that there's a minimum level of revenue that our customers will contribute towards debt service for the utility. There's a lot of components to our rate structure. We have multiple factors: water procurement adjustment, water quality adjustment, reclamation, security adjustment, Owens Valley regulatory, low income, and water revenue. Some of these go up and some of these go down. Just recently, our board in August approved a decrease of 4.3 cents effective January 1st, 4.3 cents per billing unit. This revenue adjustment factor before you is a increase of 3.4 cents. So the net of all this, all the adjustments effective January 1st, if council approves this, is a decrease in water rates, and that should be recognized that we're really talking about a net decrease in water rates. The revenues that would be collected under this factor are going to be used for replacing our main lines. We're not replacing as much main line as we should in our system right now. We know that, but without additional funds, we can't accelerate that program. We do have a compliance agreement with the Department of Public Health that requires that we construct certain significant water quality improvements, and we have scheduled milestones that we have to meet. We're going to need additional funds to meet those schedules. And we're already working on other projects, although at a slower pace, to extend our local supplies and become less dependent on imported water. So basically, this is one of those adjustment factors that, when combined with the other adjustment factors effective January 1st, will result in a net decrease of a little less than a penny per billing unit. And the average customer uses about 12 billing units. You're looking at about an 11-cent a month decrease in the water bill.
So you're going to come back to us with that in 15 days, is that correct?
Councilwoman Perry has given us a list of questions. We are prepared to respond to those questions and be back. The only caveat that I have is that I think we're on the last day of this 245 action, so if this is rejected by the council today, we will have to go back to our board to get this thing started again. So I could come back to the committee with the response to Councilwoman Perry's questions, but I won't be able to bring an actionable item until our board meets again. That's my understanding.
When's the next time your board meets?
They have a meeting scheduled in October. I'm not sure whether I'll meet that one, so probably the most likely one I would get was the first meeting in November, which would be the first Tuesday of November.
If this is so critical, you could call a special meeting, right?
That's up to the board, it's the availability of the board.
I mean, I would want to say, and Mr. City Attorney, if you could give some advice at all, if I'm beyond where I should be, but I want to be fully knowledgeable of this, and also that others are knowledgeable of this issue, because it's important that we do raise what is necessary for infrastructure. Absolutely. At the same time, there should be equitability and sensibility and fairness to all that we do. So with that being said, I'm going to support Ms. Perry. But I hope that if this is that urgent to DWP, that you organize a request to your board that they answer this so they can fit in with a timely fashion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Perry.
I just wanted to ask for an aye vote. Call the question.
We have, Mr. City Attorney, you look like you would like to add something?
Just for clarification, the DWP representative's comments seem to infer that he was hoping this would be approved today. I think the action is to disapprove it with the amending motion to come back with the answers.
Right. I believe the aye vote that Ms. Perry is asking for is from the committee report from this morning to disapprove the communication as amended by 7A. So to vote aye is to disapprove. To vote nay is to potentially approve. All right. Please open the roll. Yeah, Mr. LaBonge.
If I could. You could work within that. You understand what the committee has said. They reviewed that. Because I feel bad that I'm not totally knowledgeable at this moment on everything that's in that paper right there. And I would want to have as much information as possible to make a right decision. I want to help DWP, help the city, fix the pipes, deliver the water that you've done for almost 100 years plus. But at the same time, I want to have that information so that that information is not as freely there. I need to have that, and if it takes time, we got to get it. And that's why, again, I say I support Ms. Perry.
I understand.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, that disapproval is approved. Next item, please.
Item 11, called special by Councilmember LaBonge.
Mr. LaBonge, item 11.
Yeah, can I have the CLA at the table, please? And I don't know if anybody's here for the Transportation Department. And Mr. Alarcon, you want to just give a little briefing on this, because I wanted to back in on, this is item 11. If I could, is the
I'm happy to say that this motion is actually looking at a different way of dealing with the food truck industry. We have transportation issues, and I support improving how we handle it as a traffic issue. But I also think we need to deal with the brick and mortar restaurants to make them more competitive with the food truck vendors. This is an industry that has seen 30% of the restaurants shut down over the last several years, or maybe more. And it's an industry that needs help. And as we move forward with looking at how to use the transportation issues, we also need to better understand how to support our restaurant industry, our brick and mortar restaurant industry, so that there's more equitable playing field.
Right.
So that's all.
Thank you. Mr. Alarcon, thank you very much for that. Mr. Rosenthal's Committee of Transportation is taking this matter as it relates to the parking spaces. Our question is, where is commerce? Is it in the street, and how is it in the street? Is there a way to regulate it? Is there a way to create spaces for food trucks that would be there, as have been in many locations for many, many years, and not in a way that it would cause what we have in certain parts of the city a challenge. Mr. Miller, can you give us a little brief synopsis of what you're going to be able to do and how soon you'll have it back?
Well, again, the instruction is to come back in 30 days, but we're going to be looking at a variety of these issues. As you said, the transportation issues are being dealt with, but again, looking at the competitiveness of the brick and mortar restaurants, defining what that means, looking at public rights of way issues. It's been discussed frequently with our climate. One would think we would have a lot more outdoor dining than we do in Los Angeles, as you see in many cities. So it's really sort of an all-encompassing status of the restaurant industry and looking at the competitive aspects and tax incentives and other things.
Right, and I think the biggest thing that drove outdoor dining is smoking, and now that's being erased. People move interior to outdoor dining. That's the biggest escape in the past. My question that we're discussing in Mr. Rosendal's committee, given a robust review, is what is a parking meter space, and is there commerce that should be there? I would greatly support food trucks on open space, on corners in commercial lots, not in parking spaces, that would allow people to buy more fruit. I hate to see fruit being sold over storm drains or parkways where there could be health issues. So all this is important. You're going to be back in 30 days. And Mr. Rosendahl and your committee, we will deal with the issue to try to find some equity of what those spaces are, deal with the issue that has happened for 30, 40 years where trucks have parked, but yet they've worked cooperatively with the community, not overloaded the community. Deal with an issue where there's as many council members as on that side of the room as there are trucks. You don't want a truck behind you, do you, Bill? Okay, thank you. You want the cheese truck behind you. All right, good. But you want that gold in the gutter and the money there. And the other thing, Mr. Miller, last thing, could you find out, is there a written policy that says when you give a ticket to a vehicle that you don't give a second ticket? Could you find out if there's a written policy, or is it just a policy that somebody made up some time ago?
We'll check into that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Richard. Thank you,
Mr. Rosendahl.
Yeah, just a quick comment since my name was brought up a million times on this. We are in the process on transportation to put it all on the table. I think Mr. Alarcon's motion gives us more information and more appreciation of what the issue is, and I applaud that, and we will be dealing with it in committee. We all have to find a way to work together. These trucks have value. They serve a new social need where people on the tweeting and Facebooking get to hang out with each other in different locations. Latitude 33, a project there in Venice near the Grand Canal, brought them all in at the end of the cleanup of the beach, and they literally raised money, all these trucks, for the beach cleanup. And they were in an area that wasn't impacting any businesses, didn't cause any competitive disadvantages to anybody, and provided a social networking opportunity. So we have to find the right balance on all of this to have food trucks and the restaurants all working together. And we hope in the process in the Transportation Committee, especially with Mr. Labange's leadership on this issue, to find a way to make it all work. So I look forward to your report back to Mr. Alarcon's motion. Thank you.
Mr. Reyes.
Colleagues, this is one of those, one size does not fit all, and I think we're going to be looking at how we sensitively approach some of these economies of scale, and what the lunch trucks mean to one neighborhood might mean something different to another. So I'm hoping that as we start weighing out these factors, that we have that comprehensive point of view as we do our best not to take away jobs and not to take away the benefits of what some might call a sub-economy. Others might call it our way of life, because that's the way we've done it for years, and that's the balancing point, and I look forward to that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, let's go ahead and move to a vote. Please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Thank you. We'll look forward to that report back. Next item, please.
Item 20, called special by Councilmember Parks, an amending motion has been circulated, and there is now one card on that.
Okay. Mr. Parks, do you want to? Oh, Ms. Berry?
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. President, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on what we discussed in both your committee and in Budget and Finance. As we know, the city and the region are still in one of the midst of a very difficult economic period, and the city faces an ongoing fragile fiscal situation. The council has made some tough decisions on department consolidations and furloughs and reducing budgets. An easy answer to some of this pain would be to deplete our savings, but doing so is a one-time answer to an ongoing problem. Depleting our savings contributes to our financial instability and leaves our city vulnerable should an unexpected event occur requiring the use of our emergency reserve funds. We need only to remember the events of the not-so-distant past to realize how important it is to maintain a healthy emergency reserve fund. The 1991 El Nino flooding, the 1992 civil unrest, and the 1994 Northridge earthquake, just to name a few. With that in mind, I introduced a motion to establish a charter amendment that required that 2.75% of the general fund receipts be dedicated to the emergency reserve account. It would make it more difficult for us to view this account as a quick fix to our annual budget challenges. My ballot measure requires the council make the findings of urgent economic necessity by a 2/3 vote of the council with mayoral concurrence in order to use emergency reserve funding, or a 3/4 vote of the council without mayoral approval. An urgent economic necessity includes, but is not limited to, a natural disaster, a civil unrest, or any other unforeseen economic catastrophe that the council and mayor find to be cataclysmic enough to tap into this newly established account. To be clear, this charter amendment does not require that the city bank 2.75% of general funds receipts, but requires that we maintain the minimum level of funding by the time the controller closes the books on the fiscal year. My measure includes a waiver of this requirement to restore the emergency reserve account if the council makes findings that detail the need to access the account. This would likely be necessary in the event of, for example, an earthquake where funds needed to be continued into a new fiscal year. Both the Rules and Elections Committee as well as the Budget and Finance Committee approved the joint CAO-CLA report. However, during the discussion at Budget and Finance, Mr. Parks and the Chief Legislative Analyst discussed the possibility of integrating the concept of the budget stabilization account into my proposed ballot measure, and I agree. This charter amendment will not call for any specific funding level, simply the creation of the account. When the economy is strong, the council will bank funds into this account so that when another downturn, if it does happen in the economic cycle occurs, the budget stabilization account will be there to draw from. I believe it's an important policy for us to codify and makes a statement to bond rating agencies that we as a city are serious about keeping our city on firm financial footing. My amendment will not have an immediate effect, but will create a stronger city in the future. And as a side note, although my motion called for this measure to be considered for the November ballot in the interest of saving money and waiting for March when we were having an election for the city anyway, I agreed with the CLA and waited to do this for March 2011. So any references to November of 2010 should be changed to March 2011. Delaying this action saved the city $4.5 million. And with that, you do have on your desk motion 20A, which adds in the establishment entitlement of the Budget Stabilization Fund as requested by the Chair of Budget and Finance, and I thank him for his input. And Mr. President, after we do vote on this, assuming that it does pass, I'd like to have it go forthwith.
Thank you, Mr. Parks.
And move both reports, both Rules and Elections and Budget and Finance.
Okay. Mr. Alico.
Conceptually, I think it's prudent to set aside money as a rainy day fund. Ms. Perry, my question is, that's what I thought our reserve fund was, and so I'm just wondering, is how, since it's not, there's very little direction given to the city attorney in this motion, how would this work in the context of a reserve fund and a separate fund? I'm assuming you're going to have tighter reins on the budget stabilization fund, but I'm just curious how that would all work? Or is it merely an adjustment to the reserve fund, a sub-account under the reserve fund? So if I could just get a clarification.
Let me see if I can clarify it. Currently, by policy of the council, we have 2.75 in the emergency part of the reserve fund. The contingency fund does not have a percentage, but basically it houses what's left of the general fund that we put into that reserve fund. Generally, we try to go up to 5%. Between the emergency and contingency, we try to reach 5%. The stabilization fund will not be a part of the 5%, but it will house windfall money so that when we have great years on addressing issues such as taxation or different fees, we can put it there to then use it in lean years. We will allow the process dealing with the administrative code to create the policy, which will come back to the council and create the use of that stabilization fund in the future. We just want to put the title as part of the charter, so we wouldn't have to correct the charter later. Plus, it gives us the benefit that when we go out to our bond rating agencies, they are very appreciative that we're looking at our reserve fund in a broader sense, that we are making decisions on stabilization, and we wanted to highlight that it's visible when we talk about reserve fund, that is part of that whole discussion.
Okay, so you're basically saying, I think I'm hearing you say that the budget stabilization fund is a part of the reserve fund.
Part, but not part of the 5%.
Well, it'll have separate criteria from other components of the reserve fund.
That's right.
Okay.
And that will be dealt with by the administrative code.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Labange. How much is in our, Mr. So, if you'd want to be, what is right now in our reserve fund? Is the CAO? I'm sorry, I got CAO. He's sitting there. He's got to come up there. I'm going to get Ray Serrano. So, should know. Thank you, Ms. So.
It's about, Mr. Labange, the reserve fund fluctuates at any given point. When we adopted the budget this year, we estimated that it would be somewhere in the 160 range, approximately. And right now, as of today, it's approximately 175 million, I believe, which is a little bit more than the 3% than we anticipated. But that will change throughout the year.
Historically, going back to Mr. Piper's time, what was the percentage of funds in the reserve?
Well,
and I think it would be helpful, at least if you could look at that. You may not have that on your fingertips.
I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I can tell you that prior to the council adopting a reserve fund policy, that the reserve fund fluctuated anywhere between $10, $15 to $20 million, all the way up to over $200 million in recent times, and that was because of the concerted effort to improve our financial condition and to have those types of reserves available. So this proposal would actually codify what the council has put in place in terms of a financial
We went down
policy.
as low as $10 or $5 million 30 years ago.
Yes.
I was going to say back in the 90s, I think early 90s, we were actually more negative or pretty low with only a few couple million
Right,
dollars.
so this is a good foundation. This is like what you'd have in a good home, a solid foundation in the ground that holds whatever building you have above. So this is very good. Okay, but I would like that just to see what it is and what percentage it is, because I know over the course of time, let's say in the last 40 years, I think our lawsuits are absolutely different than what they once were, and other issues that impact there. So if you could look at that from a position, I think it would be helpful for all of us. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Garcetti. Thank you very much. And we passed this out of committee, colleagues, and thank you, Ms. Perry. I think this is a smart thing. It's the right thing to do in Ms. Perry's motion here, and a number that will continue to come forward. Some of you have been at our ratepayer advocate meetings. Next one's in Councilmember Krikorian's district in 2 Mondays on the 18th, combined with a number of other proposals that are moving forward on everything from a ban on donations from companies who have contracts before the city during RFPs and after them, a guarantee of having our community plans updated once a decade in the charter. This on the budget, and a couple others Mr. Weezer has put forward as well. I think we're going to have a good reform package in March. Reform sometimes comes from outside City Hall, and many of these ideas have come from our constituents, from neighborhood councils, and from others. But this is a really smart enshrining of what our city policy is right now in the reserve fund. We did ask the question in committee, and it was confirmed. This doesn't mean at any given point in the year there's 2.75 in the reserve fund, and I know, Mr. LaBonge, you wanted to know what it is, because sometimes taxes will come in at different points of the year. What it says on balance, and certainly at year's close, year's end, it'll be at the 2.75, which is important because for cash flow reasons, if we always had to be at that, there are some moments when we dip a little bit below that, but the emergency reserve will not be touched during the year at all, and that's the policy that we have maintained. It's one that we worked on very diligently. I think when Mr. Pacheco was first the Budget and Finance Chair, Mr. Parks has strengthened it. Maybe it was under Mr. Parks. A number of us were on the Budget Committee. But thank you to Ms. Perry. I fully support this. It came out of committee unanimously, and we look forward to this being part of a reform package in a number of different areas on this March ballot for the people of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Mr. Krikorian. I just want to try to understand this a little bit better, because in the city's current financial policies, there's a 2% emergency reserve account. And this calls for 2.75%. In what other ways does the proposal that's before us today differ from the current financial policies, number one? And number two, is the concept here of both the emergency reserve and the architecture of the Budget Stabilization Act that we're talking about, which I gather to be a separate pot of money from the reserve, is the concept here that a minimum level would be maintained, or that there would be an annual budget allocation in that amount? Because if it's the latter, then we're going to be in the position of setting aside money in down years that follow flush years, when perhaps we don't need to be doing that. For example, the budget stabilization proposal, depending on how it's structured, we might have pressing budget priorities that year and a very robust budget stabilization fund because of prior good years. It's hard to imagine now, but at some future year when we've had a number of good years. So how would that work? And I'm a little concerned about moving forward with a budget stabilization concept without having a better understanding of what even the concept is.
Well, if I can address the first question with regard to the financial policy of the 2% versus the 2.75%. Originally, when the council adopted the reserve fund policy, about a decade and a half ago, it was set at 2% with the expectation that the total reserve fund would be in the range of 5%. So over the course of the last decade, council has actually adopted a policy to move the 2% up to 2.75, and it was done in 0.25 increments. So we went from 2% to 2.25% to 2.5, and now we're at the current 2.75%. And that's what would be proposed as being the minimal level under this charter amendment. With regard to how the budget stabilization fund...
Well, I'm sorry, before you move forward. So in that respect, as to the amount, this is simply a codification of the existing city's policies. But in addition to that, there are implementation aspects to this as to what needs to be done in order to have access to the fund, which is not currently a part of policy. Is that
It is
right?
part of the policy right now. And in fact, this amendment would codify all of that, because right now, even within the existing financial policies, it does have parameters by which you can access the emergency reserve fund monies that are currently set aside, such
And are those
as...
parameters the same as what's before us now for this proposed codification?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Now on the budget stabilization concept?
With regard to the Budget Stabilization Fund, this was actually a concept that the council considered about 2 budget cycles ago. The reserve fund is, if you will, it's more of a savings account, and it's separated from the budget. And it's where we go to for, at year-end, monies end up there. And it's an expectation that we would reach a total of 5% at year-end in any given year. As you know, this will be 2.75 emergency, and the rest would be in the contingency account. The Budget Stabilization Fund, as originally conceived, was intended to be a place where it would smooth out peaks and valleys. And so part of the concept was, in years past, when the economy was very, very good, the city expended those monies during the boom years, so to speak. And so as a result, when the revenues started coming down, now, which is the situation that we're in today, it's making it much more difficult to bring those our expenditures in line with our revenues that have been declining. And so the concept is for a budget stabilization fund, perhaps what could be done, and this would all come back to you as part of an ordinance if this passes a charter amendment. So what could happen is, under a budget stabilization fund, you could estimate that you would have a certain amount of revenues that are collected in a given year. And so your budget is predicated based on a $4 billion general fund revenue estimate. Say, for example, that during the year, so you have a budget of $4 billion, and you allocate your resources based on that $4 billion. For example, if our revenues come in at $4.2 billion, in theory, under an ordinance adopted consistent with the Budget Stabilization Fund, any monies that you collect over and above what you anticipated could be placed in that Budget Stabilization Fund, rather than spending it in that year. And what that does is, if it's set aside in that fund, it could be used in future years to address those years where we don't have funds to do some of the most basic things, such as street repair, or maintenance of roads or sidewalks, or whatever one-time uses. What you don't want is a situation where you use those funds and put it into a continuing program, because that's what we have today. We have continuing programs in which we have no continuing funding for. Another concept that possibly could be used is one revenue that we have that's very, very volatile is a documentary transfer tax. A few years ago, our documentary transfer tax, because of the real estate boom again, because of all of the real estate transactions, the documentary transfer tax exceeded $200 million. By comparison, this year in our budget, we're only estimating somewhere around $50 to $60 million. Is that correct, Ray? It's a much lower number, but there's a wide gap in that number. So because of the volatility of that particular revenue source, the council could adopt, maybe by ordinance, if this measure passes, a policy where you would budget based on a flat amount of the documentary transfer, or an expected amount of the documentary transfer tax, and if more than that comes in, it could be put in the Budget Stabilization Fund. So those are concepts that we would be bringing back to you and would be adopted as part of an ordinance.
Thank you. Mr. Kokorian?
If I may, just to answer your last question about the maintenance, is basically this is a maintenance. It's not an addition for each year that you put in the 2.75. It's basically a maintenance level.
Thank you.
We have one public speaker, Wayne Spindler.
All right. Well, another waste of time. This is how Sacramento goes bankrupt every year. They have so many budgetary constraints that money has to be earmarked for certain things, particularly education and other things, that they cannot have the proper type of flexibility for budgets. Like it or not, there's 15 of you, somebody votes for you people, because I sure as hell wouldn't vote for any of you, but they do. It's your job. Your job is inherently to pass a budget each fiscal year starting July 1st. You can't handcuff yourself with abstract, idiotic rules to make some imaginary trust fund or the lockbox that Al Gore talked about, because in reality, it's irrelevant. The money you take in each year, the money you have available on hand changes by the minute in every actuarial form. it doesn't make sense to come up with a number 2, 3, 4, 5%. And she turns around and looks at me because she knows it's right, because obviously it's ridiculous, the whole concept. You can't take and steal from yourself and place it in another account and then say, oh, I'm not going to touch that money. Of course you're going to touch that money. You're going to grab every dime you can, and you're going to, and there's 15 council districts, and you're going to grab and for me, for my district, for my district. So just leave don't have any budgetary restrictions. Don't even put this on the ballot. Just come each year and do your budget and work it out that way, because every situation every year is different. We're going to be in a recession for many years to come in the city. The last thing you want to do is tie up more funds into these other funds. Thank you.
All right, that matter is now before us. No other speakers on the queue. Open the roll, and close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Next item, please.
Mr. President, there was a request to send that forthwith.
Forthwith on that matter, please. Thank you, Ms. Perry.
Item 22, called special for cards.
Number 22, John Walsh, HollywoodHighlands.org.
And join us on Twitter. Only people who Twitter the city council meeting at Hollywood Dems. This is training, emergency training, in case the world semi-ends and 12 or 13 of you are dead, the 1 or 2 are left. Who's going to be the acting mayor? You're going to get special training and who to be the active mayor. You know, I won bets. Who was the mayor of the city of Los Angeles on 9/11? Do you know what that answer is? Alex Padilla was the mayor of the city of Los Angeles. Of course, Hahn was out, and he did an excellent job, and he didn't hog anything, and he had no training. And incidentally, we also have if you go now to our website, a trivia question that one person here can answer, and that is, which city council person had an uncle who was a city council member? I know that one person up here knows it. I'm saying right now, you don't need to train anybody. You're so good, if there's a disaster, fine. HollywoodHighlands.org. 1 minute.
Wayne Spindler.
Okay. This is actually going to be a very good thing, because to be a mayor, to be trained to be the mayor of Los Angeles, you have to have special training. One such thing is how to get into Staples Center and get courtside seats. And the way that you do that is first you draft a type of motion or public meeting that's required for the mayor to be there. Then secondly, you give the presentation, and then third, you continue the presentation past halftime so that you can stay at the entire game and have courtside seats. Then you have to be able to go into fancy restaurants and order thousands of dollars of bottles of champagne and be able to argue that you were going to drink it at the dinner, but that you had an emergency you had to go to, and you take it all back and then you put it in your wine cellar, so at the end of 4 years you have $100,000 worth of vintage beverages paid by the taxpayers. These are the kind of things that the mayor does. I mean, if 15 members of the city council have to be trained to be the mayor, I mean, what the hell for? I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, Mayor Villaraigosa, what training did he have to become mayor? He was in the state legislature. He was a city councilman. Then he got voted as mayor. What training did he? He had no training. And the prior speaker's correct. Alex Padilla took over. He didn't have any training. You know, he's now in the state senate. He's running for re-election. He's going to win. And you know, it's a waste of time. But I mean, if you want to have a real training program, I think you have to argue the issues of ordering beverages, keeping those expensive beverages, courtside seats, and other perks. Thank you very much.
Let's go to the San Fernando Valley. Donna Perman.
Okay, yeah, I believe that this is a big waste of money. I believe that each one of those council members, I believe this is a way so they can have another training session so they can train each and every council member how to take over, even though Eric Garcetti does very well when he's acting mayor. Anyway, I can see now that maybe what that other speaker just spoke about, maybe that's where the training is going to be, how to be able to take gifts and call it city business, and how to be able to go to fancy restaurants, and how to be able to take your girlfriends when you're married out. So perhaps this is what the real training is, and not what to do in an emergency. So so I believe that this is a big waste. As I said, this is a big waste of money, and I don't believe we need to be able to go. You're going to take it away from the neighborhood councils who really need the money, and we're going to be having it on these trainings. And then, of course, we'll probably have to pay for hotel rooms. We'll probably have to pay for meals out because they'll have to eat while they're training to be mayors. And then we're going to have to redo it again in 2 more years when we have more. When the city employees the council members are termed out, then we're going to have to redo it again for the whole new council members. So I say vote no on this. This is not good. This is bad. It's the 2/3 vote, trying to get rid of the 2/3 vote with the state legislature. This is just as bad and wasteful. To get rid of the 2/3, and we don't need to have simple majority. Okay, thank you.
Marion Bolger.
Yeah, they're really pouring it on, folks. Look, they have a budget crisis here at the city, and they're going after the employees for their health care costs. When they complain about how much health care costs, look at this, how much they can spend for this thing. With the mayor thing, I think this is an absolute outrage, and the union should stand up and boycott you all and be on strike, whatever, not to give you 1 red cent, folks. Because all they're doing is they're stealing from the taxpayers again. Here we go. They're going to be fighting over each other when the big disaster happens. Lo and behold, look at Volcano coming in. Look at the movie on there on Channel 77. Volcano, the Fresno's coming in. They're going to be fighting over what's going to make the decision here. And it's going to be too late. You can't have such. It's going to be a lot of chaos, a lot of confusion, and too many people knowing how to do this job. Only 1 or 2 people should be in charge. I think this is an outrage to the taxpayers, and, this has got to be stopped. And Howard Jarvis said he had enough of it. Enough is enough, and not going to take it anymore. Vote no on the ballot. 22 and 25. Put a no on these things, and no vote for 20 either. That's a bad one, because they're gonna be able to raise the ceiling, and they're going to take more money from the city libraries and parks.
The ballot items are not on the agenda or within the jurisdiction of the
Back to
city
you.
right now.
I think she's completed her comments. Thank you very much. Mr. Garcetti, please. Mr. Garcetti.
I will defer to Mr. Parks, and then I'll pick up after him.
Well, before Mr. Parks, Mr. Smith is Mr. Garcetti today, but then there's Mr. Labange, then Mr. Parks.
Okay.
Mr. Labange is not there.
Go ahead, Mr. Parks, and then I'll go next.
Well, there you go, Mr. Labange, and then Mr.
I was
Parks.
first, but Mr. Parks wanted to go first, so I was deferring to him, and then I'll go second.
Mr. Parks?
Okay, let me just explain. Contrary to all of the public comments, this has nothing to do with learning how to be the mayor. This is actually being prepared to run the city in an emergency. And even though Alex Padilla was there for 9/11, I can assure you he would have liked to have the training to know what the Emergency Operation Board before he was thrust into it. He would like to have known what the responsibilities of running the city from the emergency command post were before he was thrust into it. This is giving the council an awareness of what the expectations. We also found that not only in the 9/11 but subsequent earthquake, that we had council members that were actually generating activities in their community that already are part of the Emergency Operation Board, where you don't have to go out and create volunteer forces, that's already identified and given the city department. Every city department has a major standing role in emergencies. So if you're looking for shelter, it's Rec and Park. If volunteers, you're dealing with personnel. These are things that it's important that every council member know that, and it has very little to do with learning how to be the mayor. It's learning how to operate in this emergency environment that no longer do we have the particular breakdown department by department. Every department is in the emergency center, and they operate as one entity at the direction of the Emergency Operation Board, which I think now has, 15 members on it, which are the major departments, but it also has a role in which elected officials need to know what the expectations are, what the board does, and that's what this training is about.
Unified command.
Yes.
Mr. Garcetti, then Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Parks, for that. I think you addressed some of the Speaker's concerns. It takes pretty deep cynicism to believe that government can't do emergency response work, which I think Los Angeles has actually distinguished itself as being among the best in the country, and there's credible people that are leading in the department. But I also think we've had a very literate group of elected officials. Elected officials do make the difference, whether it was Mayor Reardon calling on the banks after the '94 earthquake to freeze people's payments so that they wouldn't lose houses and cars, whether it was Alex when Mayor Hahn was stuck in Washington, D.C. because all flights were grounded, and he had actually gone through some training. But colleagues, I stand as your council president today because I've talked with Mr. Smith, and he and I are going to coordinate among all of us to make sure that every single council office has a set, many of them already do, designated person for emergency response on citywide responses. The differences that Councilmember Alarcon's office made during the recent fires when people lost their homes, when we've all experienced in our own districts or gone through citywide events like 9/11, it is critical that we have a set protocol, that we have set procedures, and that we have knowledgeable elected officials. My senior staff and I just went and did a little kind of orientation at our Emergency Operations Center. We're working with making sure the council role, because in the worst case scenarios, yes, there could be people who are no longer the mayor because they're out of town, like with what happened with Mayor Hahn, or for other reasons. And it is critical that we have a seamless continuation of governance in this city. So I'm going to ask each of the council offices, and I think especially those who have been here for a long time, Mr. Reyes and Mr. Labange and Mr. Parks and Ms. Perry, Mr. Alarcon, Mr. Zine, Mr. Smith, who have experience as city employees, know how important it is for council offices to have that. And our emergency management department is doing a great job of helping us. I think we need to go through what they call their 101 and 201 training, make sure that we have somebody who's there regularly when there are the citywide alerts, that we can rotate. It's a 24-hour shift, so we'll look at the three offices, probably the council leadership, having a person there on 8-hour shifts around the clock, and making sure that we have that continuation of governance. And even when we do have the mayor, this isn't just about the acting mayor. We work through our neighborhood councils and our community groups, and we have our ear closely to the ground. Council offices are very well structured to do that in emergencies and to leap into action. So this is part of the first step. I urge your support on this today. It's not some brand new huge cost. This is existing resources and existing employees that we have. In fact, we've cut costs from what we used to do. Every year we did a training. Many council members have been a part of that, and council offices used to be up in Lake Arrowhead. Now, under these budget constraints, we're doing it here in the city of Los Angeles, most recently in San Pedro. So I urge you to find that person in your office who will be the point person for emergency response, probably in your field office. It doesn't necessarily have to be your district director. It can be somebody who really trains with the expertise, one field deputy or somebody who's interested. We're going to put that roster together as well, and then work to make sure that they get trained to know what to do in an emergency to continue that record that Los Angeles has.
Thank you. Mr. Labange.
I just want to follow up, Eric. You said that prior, and Mr. Wesson, when you were here with Mr. Holden, deputies were the role. So I think it's key that for the CLA to help remind us all to have deputies do that. Deputies do a great job. Ms. Day, does this cost any money?
No, sir, it's existing staff in our department.
There's no money cost here. I think it's important to review the situation. As I mentioned, Hal Burtson's name some meetings ago, we had a meeting in the advent that this meeting hall would be destroyed out in the field of Dodger Stadium area several years ago. All this is important to be ready because the big one is going to come, and other things may happen too. And I just want to remind you, A.C. Cooper, you know who A.C. Cooper is, Miss Anderson Cooper? He did a story about earthquakes, and the number one city that's best prepared is Los Angeles. Did you see that on A.C. Cooper 360?
No.
You should have saw it. Go on CNN website and find out. And this is a focus point. But preparedness is key, and it prepares everybody for that. And I want to just remind that. And I think Mr. Garcetti said it right. It's the staff that will be very helpful, and also in working with it. Just recently, tragically, last week, with the hiker on a 113-degree heat day passed, these efforts, whatever they are, whenever there's an emergency, we can be helpful if there's notification and organization. So,
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc.
no, thank you, Mr. Zion.
Pleasure. Ms. Hahn.
Thank you. Well, this is all good discussions, and I think I've always been a big proponent of educating and preparing neighborhoods and neighborhood councils and some of the CERT groups out there, because I think in the event of a major catastrophe, it's really going to be neighborhood by neighborhood and block by block in terms of how we will access resources. My question is, what exactly are we voting on today, and what will this begin to implement?
The report before you today covers several things. One is we were asked to report on the governance of the Emergency Operations Organization, and that is specifically outlined within the Los Angeles Administrative Code. That's why so many references were actually included in the report. The second issue that we were asked to report on was how logistics or how resources are identified and moved in a disaster. So within the Emergency Management Department, we're working with the state and the various city departments and other agencies to review how we do that, specifically through the Department of General Services and the Emergency Operations Center.
And are you actually setting up training for council members?
Yes.
As part of this?
Yes, and the third was a specific issue of council training specific to the Emergency Operations Organization, governance, and other issues related to disaster.
You've come back with a report that basically says how that's going to be accomplished?
Actually, we've conducted 2 of the trainings thus far on the 27th, and we're now setting up dates in which we'll be reaching out to all of the council offices to offer that. It's basically a 2-hour training in our center, and it's conducted by our general manager.
So these things have already happened. So what I'm asking, is this a note and file?
This is recommended as a note and file from the Public Safety Committee.
So we're basically just noting and filing
The report from the EMD.
report. So all this discussion about what this actually would begin to implement or trigger is not true. We're just note and filing a report where they have discussed these things in the report. We're not actually triggering anything by this vote. We're note and filing. So to say I want an aye vote on this, we're just accepting the report and note and filing it.
Note and file is the direction on this matter.
Right. It seemed a little exaggerated in our discussion in the morning what we're actually doing. I just want to get it clear.
Note and file, yes,
We're
sir.
note and filing the report. We're not triggering anything. We're not asking for anything. We're not spending any money.
There are no recommendations in this report, no, ma'am.
Fine. So that was kind of an exaggerated discussion.
We're just going to
Okay.
train our people in case of an emergency. All right, so that matter is going to be noted and filed. Mr. Clerk? Mr. Parks?
I think it needs to be clarified. We're not asking for approval, but she's going forward and implementing the program.
Yeah, but that's not what we're voting on.
Okay? Yeah.
Correct. Not voting on it.
And you do that with existing resources, and there's no additional funding or personnel required?
That's correct. It's in-house, conducted at a city facility with existing personnel.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, that'll be the direction. Thank you. Next item, please.
Council does need to vote on that item.
Right, but it was
Mr. Clerk, number 31, we can bring that up for a vote.
I was just saying that we're also...
Mr. President, council still needs to vote on item 22.
We do have to vote on it? All right.
Yes, it is a recommendation from the committee.
All right, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote. So we voted and we received and filed. Next item, please.
14 ayes.
Next item.
Item 23, called special for cards.
23, John Walsh. And then Arnold Sachs.
So did you know in that report what people designated?
With Highlands.org, twittering at Hollywood Dems, and emailing at hollywooddems@gmail.com. You know, I promised you before, this concerns multi-language emergency readiness. Now, I have promised you in the past that I would address the council in an African language that I happen to speak. I was told that the city attorney will then take what I say and hand it over to an Amharic-speaking lawyer, which you will have to hire, to make sure I didn't break any rules of decorum or conduct. So I am now about to give a job to an an Ethiopian American lawyer. Tanai Stilling, Indemen Walu, Bezi, Mazagajabetu. Mazagajabetu means this is City Hall. After that, you get no translations. You'll have to pay for them. Ato, Eric, Metfoso, Batam Metfoso, Unek Uwushet, Alaukum, Alaukum.
Mr. Walsh, can you please speak
No, wait a second.
so we can understand you?
If you could tell, okay. Gobaz Idolum.
Thank you.
Atozin Gobaz Idolum. Tanastilin, Indeminachu.
Mr. President, his comments appear to be irrelevant to this item right now.
You know that.
Well,
you are anti-black.
if we could understand you, maybe
You
we
are
would know that.
They appear to be.
All right, Mr. Walsh. Mr.
they
Walsh.
are.
Thank you, Mr.
How
Walsh.
dare
Mr. Walsh, you're done. Mr. Sachs. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Sachs. Thank you very much.
Oh, God.
Facts. Just as an example, this is a multi-language emergency readiness outreach material. I just came from the County Board of Supervisors because I presented to them a situation that happened yesterday. Now, it's not an emergency outreach program, but it is multi-language. This is 2 flyers that were produced by Metro for the downtown connector, just as an example. This is English that shows 3 alternatives to the downtown connector plan. This is Korean that shows an entirely different downtown connector plan. Multi-language put out by one agency, Metro. So how do we know what the hell's going on? Metro says there's 3 alternatives, but language-wise, there's 4 alternatives. And this one in Korean is totally different than the 3 in English. So again, how the hell do you know what's going on? You want to present emergency outreach material in multi-languages. Who's overseeing the project? I can ask who's overseeing Metro. That's why I went to the county board. Got no answer there. So how do you present this material multilinguistically? 2 documents. I wish I had more so you could each inspect them. But you're welcome to look at these. You can get them at Metro. Entirely different alternatives for $1 billion project that's
Thank you,
going to be
Mr.
downtown.
Sachs. Thank you for your comments. Mr. Clerk, the matter is before us. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Next item, please.
Item 26, called special for cards.
Number 26, John Walsh. 1 minute, Mr. Walsh. You're on your final minute. And then Tom McCarthy.
Do anything in 1 minute.
There you go.
HollywoodHighlands.org. I just want it, we now know that if you speak in an African language, you will be laughed at and humiliated. I would like to give to the city attorney, item 7 was a violation of the Brown Act. Can you give this to the city attorney? This is a
Sergeant Arms, can you take that from Mr. Walsh?
He has yet to discuss this item, Mr. President.
As far as, this is called vacating a piece of property downtown. That means they're going to sell it to somebody. Check it out. Check who they're selling it to. You know, there's only one multimillionaire on this city council board, and if you want to know who that person is, come to HollywoodHighlands.org next week, and I'll tell you which one of these, which one up here is a multimillionaire. HollywoodHighlands.org. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Tom McCarthy.
Tom McCarty, just willing to answer any questions if the council has any. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have no one on the queue, so open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Next item, please.
Item 30, called special for cards.
Number 30 is John Walsh. John Walsh is out of time. So on number 30, colleagues, no one on the queue, open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Next item, please.
Item 31 was called special for an amending motion that has been circulated, and there are cards on that.
Arnold Sachs. Number 31, Arnold Sachs. And that is our final item on the agenda.
Just very quickly, this item that's being presented by the Department of the Engineers, this doesn't include any vetting in this program that somewhere down the highway, this project will be enabled to have special permits or any of that sort of item that occurs all too frequently, because behind the scenes there is a quote-unquote vetting of requirements that 98% of the public would have to be observant of, and the 2% of the deep pockets in this city can get waived. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. The matters before us, colleagues. Open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Mr. Clerk, next item.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Posted and referred, Ms. Parks. Mr.
We have 1 and 4 forthwith.
1 and 4 forthwith for Mr. Parks.
There are excuses on the desk. Councilmember Koretz requests to be excused December 17th for city business. That meets council policy.
December 17th?
December 17th.
Very well.
Member Garcetti requests to be excused to leave at noon on October 19th for city business. That meets council policy.
That's approved.
And Councilmember Perry requests to be excused to leave at 11:45 on October 6th. That meets council policy.
That's approved.
That clears the desk.
Announcements, colleagues. Any announcements? Mr. Parks?
I'd like to just make the public aware that the final meeting of the Figueroa Corridor Streetscape, a $20 million improvement project that's being done in conjunction with the CRA, is going to hold their last meeting today, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at 735 South Figueroa. We encourage all the community to be there regarding this important planning effort.
Any other announcements, colleagues? Announcements? I have one announcement in the San Fernando Valley tomorrow evening. First ever Topanga officers versus Topanga Police Cadet basketball game at Pierce College. That's at 5:30. I understand that Chief Beck will be there, and he may be playing basketball in that particular event. Public is invited. And adjourning motions, colleagues. Adjourning motions. Mr. Rosendahl, please stand, everyone. Please stand for adjourning motions. Mr. Rosendahl.
Mr. President, this is an adjourning motion for Jonathan Persoff. John Persoff ran Regular John's in Brentwood for 20 years, died peacefully of a brain tumor on Saturday, September 25th, 4 days before his 75th birthday. He was educated in Beverly Hills Schools and Pomona College, served as a naval intelligence officer at Treasure Island, and then worked in the advertising business. From the 1970s until the early 1990s, he owned and ran Regular John's, which was well known for its landmark San Vicente Boulevard fire engine, as well as for its pizza, and treasured as a gathering place of generations of community members. Through his restaurant, John conducted fundraisers to assist the Los Angeles schools, encouraged citizen participation in elections by offering discounts to those who had showed ballot tickets on election days, and ran the Pizza Pie Open Golf Tournament at the Riviera Country Club. John was also active in West Side alumni affairs at Pomona College and was recognized for his civic contributions by the Board of Education. In retirement in New Haven, Connecticut, John became a special student in history at Yale, undertook a book on Vietnam War, and volunteered for the Women's Health Clinic. He returned to Los Angeles in 2004. John is survived by his son Joshua, his brother Richard, his wife of 28 years, Marion, stepchilds Carl and Ellen, and granddaughter Devon. John was previously married to the late Heather Hamilton. Memorial services are pending. Donations can be made to charities of the donor's choice in John's name. May he rest in peace.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenbaum. Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. Colleagues, with a heavy heart, I adjourn in the honor of Jose and Samuel Martinez, the two young men, brothers, who were shot and killed on September 25th in the community of Cypress Park. They died a very violent death. The Martinez family are a local family. Their son's involved with the Anahuac Soccer Club for many years. They were able to benefit from the at Rio Park, the Taylor Yard, and were just good young men who were just trying to get by. They were completely innocent, and this crime is very senseless. Police do have a suspect in custody. Samuel Martinez was 20 years old, survived by his wife, Alexis Enciso, and Jose Martinez, 24, survived by a 9-month-old Andrea and his wife, Darlene Servin. They're survived by their parents, Jose Martinez and his mom, Griselda Martinez. The remaining siblings, George Martinez, 16, and Veronica Martinez, age 10. All members?
All members. Mr. LaBonge.
Yeah, members, I ask for the adjourned memory of Stephen J. Cannell, a prolific writer, born in Los Angeles, grew up here, but was tickled by a creative writer at Oregon, University of Oregon, that encouraged him to become a writer. He wrote the script for Mr. Zine, Adam 12. After driving trucks at night, he wrote the Adam 12 script, and then the rest is history. From the Rockford Files to the A-Team, a very, very special writer, and he's survived by his wife, Marcia, a wife of 46 years, and several children. Additionally, I'd like to ask for the adjourned memory of George Blanda, a great athlete who played in over 5 decades as a footballer. Played in the 40s, and 50s, 60s, and 70s. I said 5, I meant 4. But he was a great inspiration to Americans because being an older fella who could play in the National Football League, it was so special. And he wasn't just a kicker, although he was a great kicker. He was a quarterback and a great leader. So he's a hero to many, George Blanda. And lastly, I ask you to adjourn a member of Art Gilmore, who lived to be 98. He lived in Studio City for many years before he retired in the Orange County area. He's married 72 years to his wife, Gracie, and their daughters. And he was the voice of God in motion pictures, where you would see those great Hollywood pictures where they say he'd walked into the door and turned the corner. It was Art Gilmore's voice. And as Mr. Zine will tell you, he also did the voice of Highway Patrol, wherever the laws of any state of broken, a duly authorized organization swings into action. He was a great participant in our 10-4 day parade. We honored him yesterday in memory of him today, but he was a good human being who loved his job and had the voice. And I think we think of Hollywood often of the beautiful people. He was a beautiful man, a handsome man. He truly was an inspirational man who knew how to use his voice creatively and help out. And as we adjourn in memory of Art Gilmore. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LaBonge. Second by Mr. Garcetti. Any other adjourning motions? Second by Mr. Corian. Any other adjourning motions, colleagues? No other adjourning motions. This concludes this meeting. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll. Thank you. Our meeting is concluded. We will resume tomorrow.